Anthony for breakfast, Albany's 783 Triple M. Well, today's Valentine's Day. Love is in the air, and it's often in the air in our workplaces, in that airspace at work. Regular surveys are showing that as many as 24% of workers are in romantic relationships with colleagues, and over 50% of all romantic relationships starting at work. This is really, really interesting, because when romances go well, it can lead to, a lifetime of joy and just great, having a partner and doing really well that way. But when they go wrong in the workplace, there can be significant consequences. And the Fair Work Act is quite specific about when workplace romances can cross the line. So HR expert Jonathan Wolfrey is with us to just talk about navigating through the joys and the risks of workplace romances, some of which might be ready to blossom on Valentine's Day today. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm very good, Anthony. Happy Valentine's Day, dare I say.
Yeah, I'm shocked at how many people actually meet someone at work and get involved in a romantic relationship. I didn't think it was that high.
It might change, I think, in the coming years as, workplaces change a little bit. But yeah, they're from recent surveys, but not done by university as such, but just getting people's general sense of what happens in the workplace. And it makes sense. We spend 40 hours plus or minus at work.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't get a chance to meet people in a physical capacity outside of the workplace. So, yeah, you form those relationships over 40 hours a week, year in, year out. It's no surprise. But it doesn't always come front of mind when you're thinking about workplace relationships and how they form. But it makes sense when you think of the time people spend together.
Okay. How can you cross the line in terms of a romantic relationship at work and involve the Fair Work Act?
Yeah, this is a tricky one, and I think it's becoming increasingly tricky as well, because we're getting much more clarity and much more regulation around sexual harassment in the workplace, the diversity, how we treat people, how we don't discriminate against people and things like that. So it is a tricky space. How we navigate that? First and foremost, the relationships in the workplace need to be appropriate, above board, not harass, intimidate, and those general behaviours. And most of the Fair Work Act, the specifics of it generally, talk about aspects we consider in healthy relationships, etc. So how do we make sure it doesn't cross the line? That we need to be really mindful as employers predominantly and colleagues and employees to make sure that we're clear about what it looks like in our workplace and what doesn't. And as we have this conversation, Anthony, there's a few things I'd probably suggest we can go down to really clarify this and protect ourselves from a fair FWC type of outcome.
Yeah, let's have a listen to those.
For sure. So, look, it's best actually, I know it sounds a little bit invasive in that, but just to have clarity about the behaviours expected in a workplace. And we normally see those through workplace policies, codes of conduct, and employment contracts that people have, and maybe some other aspects in the workplace. But they're probably the three main things where behaviour is spelled out and what we look for. And to be honest, first and foremost, we probably should have in those kind of documents certain explicit behaviours we expect in the workplace, whether there's a romantic relationship or not. So defining those behaviours, defining what's expected, having an understanding in our organisation is the first antidote to getting ourselves into these kind of troubles. So if people are having these relationships done in a healthy and an appropriate way, and love blossoms on the back of that, mutually agreed, mutually entered into, then that's a good start to begin with. Yeah. Then some of the other things worthwhile keeping in mind as well in these situations is looking for things that might go wrong in advance in your organisation. So a subordinate reporting to their, romantic partner in the workplace, where they may be seen as favouritism, where there may be some pressure on them to go out for a date, all those kind of power imbalances that do exist. Organisations that are at risk of those occurring, particularly medium to large organisations, possibly should incorporate that into things like conflict of interest and other kind of things in there where, look, we acknowledge that the relationship exists, but we have some things in place. So it's always fraught if a supervisor is supervising one of their, someone that they have a relationship with and things like that. So we put in place these things to acknowledge it, but also then manage it on a case-by-case situation in the workplace so that, there's not power imbalances, intimidation, favouritism, all those negative behaviours we see that could get us in trouble as organisations.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you very much, Jonathan Wolfrey. Love is in the air, and it's often in the air in the workplaces. We'll catch up again in a couple of weeks' time, Jonathan.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Anthony.